Welcome to Checks and Balances. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair. And this week we're joined by Ben Brinkerhoff, Head of Advice at Consilium. And this week, you can't put a number on happiness.
So, Mike, we're a little bit gypsy-like at the moment.
We are.
We've filmed 10 different episodes in about 10 different spots. Who knows where we'll end up being long-term, but for the next month or so, we'll be in this location. And before I introduce our very special guest, happy birthday, Michael.
18. It's not bad. Right. A fresh-faced 18-year-old.
Yeah. So Ben and I are now going to sing you happy.
Have you heard me sing? It's not a good idea.
As the listeners switch off. Yeah.
So Ben, welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. How was the flight up from Christchurch?
Couldn't have been easier, yeah.
Nice. Awesome to hear. So Ben is the head of advice at Consilium. So a little bit of, you probably wouldn't have heard of Consilium as a brand. They're not like a Milford or a bank or somebody that's constantly in your face doing advertising. They are a very important person in my life, though, as a financial advisor. So Ben works with, and Consilium work with, financial advice businesses all around the country. I think, Ben, you work with about 150 advisory firms, something like $7 billion of funds under management. And their job really is to help advisors give the best possible advice and experience to clients in terms of how we present information, how we have conversations with our clients. And the thing I'm very excited to have Ben on is because I've listened to Ben present at conferences before. And Ben, I love how you think about advice, how you go to some conferences and you're like, geez, this is pretty dry. I'm hearing about iron butterflies, durations on bonds, and then you come along and firstly got a different accent, and that is helpful. But we're not just talking about money, right? We're talking about what money means to people having kind of, I guess, thought-invoking sort of conversations.
Absolutely. I really love the privilege of financial advisors. When I was a financial advisor, when I was living in the United States, and it's such a privilege doing this job because the amount of trust it takes for someone to speak to someone about their money. I mean, people would rather talk about their love life, I think, than talk about their money. And there you have this person that you've invited into this inner sanctum of information. And because of that, the financial advisor is in a unique position to help that person to live a truly wonderful life using their money positively because of the honesty and the openness that is just incumbent in a good relationship. And that is the kind of relationship I want advisors to really have with their investors or clients.
Yeah, I can tell you it's from talking about your dating life over money. My brother Jordan, he doesn't really want to talk about either. The financial plan could be going better. The poor bloke gets friend zoned from time to time, but we love him nonetheless. Yeah. So today's topic, you can't put a number on happiness. Yeah. I know you recently wrote an article around this, and the thing I'm excited about this topic is we've only got 2 questions.
Okay,
and we're just going to see where today goes, aren't we, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I wrote this article because Consilium, the business that I work for, and we help sponsor a survey that was meant to find how much money might you need one day to retire. And there was kind of what you need for essentials, and then there was another number for what you might need if you are wanting to have choices in your retirement. And it makes a lot of news. It came out of Massey University. They did a very good job with that. And it's for financial advisors, this is truly valuable information because how often you sit down with someone and you say, okay, you come to me because you want to have choices in your retirement and you want to plan for that. You know that it's coming up and your children have left home. How much do you think that you need? Or what do you want to live on? And people, that's a scary question.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily know what to say. And sometimes you can say, well, we have some outside information that we might need around $600,000 if you're living in a metropolitan area. You want to have some choices. And so that can be a real positive conversation to have with someone. But but the reason I wrote the article, You Can't Put a Number on Happiness, is because when we reflect on it, our experiences as financial advisors, when I was one and now I work with several financial advisors like yourselves, is that people often think that their relationship with their financial advisor is based on, I want to accumulate a certain amount of assets.
Yeah.
You've even some people come to you and it might be someone, 33 years old, right? So smart, ambitious.
We're not meant to mention that, Ben.
Yeah, 18, but yeah.
18, but incredibly good looking.
Yeah.
They say, I'd like they put a number out there, $1 million, $3 million. Sometimes they want to acquire X many properties. And you think to yourself, having had experience working with hundreds of clients, when people get to that spot that they're not as happy as they think they're going to be. So you reflect on that and you think, actually, this journey is not about a number, because happiness doesn't have a number. You get to a spot where you have. Let's say you got there. You're in your 40s still, and you've acquired a net worth of $4 or $5 million, and maybe even liquid net worth of a couple $1 million. They could be miserable.
Yeah.
It could be that all the sacrifice they put in, and they put their family to the side as they are pursuing their career, and there's broken relationships there, and they reflect back on that and they say, this was why I was striving for this, but now I'm here. And I actually wish I could have a do-over.
Yeah.
Because, I wanted this freedom, but I enslaved myself to get it. So it's our collective experience as advisors that although you could have a monetary goal, I could say, I want to have this much wealth that I've acquired by this age, fine. But don't confuse that when you get there, that means you're happy.
Yeah, it's incredible the amount of customers I speak to are like, can you get me another investment property? And I'm like, why? And no one ever stops to think of why. They're like, I just need more, right? Instead of always, I just need more. Yeah.
Yeah. And that point around a very simple, I say in terms of how much you need for retirement, I go, simple question to ask, very complicated answer. And that example you gave where you have $4 or $5 million, but you're unhappy, your wife or your husband hates you, the kids never see you, so they're resentful, you're out of shape because you haven't looked after yourself. All of those things are scenarios I see quite often. And then the other one that happens as well, which is obviously pretty sad, is your own personal health and how many work so hard to get to a certain point and focus on the destination rather than the journey.
That's right. If I could share a bit of a story, speaking to this one person in my life, and I've had a lot of influence on me, and I really love this person. They tried early retirement, and they're walking around Hagley Park, kind of like, 10 a.m. in the morning, taking the dog for a walk, and they just had this crisis moment where they thought, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, because there's so much joy that sometimes comes with accomplishing things. And so you sit back and say, no, actually, I like being challenged. I like challenges. I like overcoming things. I like doing activities. I like achieving. And so another person who told me, Ben, the scariest moment of your life was you realize you don't have to work anymore. He said, you think it's going to be great. You think that's going to be a great moment. I have freedom, right? And actually, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's a terrifying moment. Not that I've experienced, by the way. And sometimes I think, well, I'd like to try that on and just see how it feels for me. Maybe the suit fits.
Yeah.
But I've heard from enough people that it's not as wonderful as we imagine it to be. And I'm 42 now, and I'm thinking, I want to learn the lesson. I don't want to have to experience it and go, gee, they were right, and I regret what I had done here. I want to challenge myself, and I want to challenge advisors to help clients think through what really does make them happy. To recognize that money is fuel. It's not a destination.
Yeah.
And people tell you, I like analogies. Can I share you with you one?
Yeah.
Imagine you go to a store, right, and you load up your car with batteries. And every store you get to, I'm going to find as many batteries as I possibly can, right?
Yeah.
And you bring them home and you never plug them into a device. Did you feel better that you had a lot of batteries? Right? You never plugged them in. And how is it not just simply acquiring wealth and never plugging it in and not being plugged in? How has that really brought you a lasting sense of achievement and happiness?
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes we can be in that battery collection stage and we forget to get plugged in.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not putting down acquiring wealth because I think there's a lot of prudence and wisdom in that. But it's not the destination. You can't put a number. You can't think to yourself, "Oh, I'll be happy then." It doesn't seem to work.
So Ben, one really interesting thing I thought you just said was that those who achieve get to the point where they don't need to work anymore. That is quite a scary moment. So a lot of people talk to me about financial freedom.
Yeah.
James, I want to work because I love what I do, not because I have to do.
Yep.
What you've just said there, why do you think people struggle when they get to that moment? Do you think it's an identity thing? Like, I am Bob the engineer and now I can decide who the hell I am? Why do you think it is?
I think there's a lot to that, right? Someone who I respect named Dan Sullivan, I'm sure I know he has a podcast himself.
No plugs.
Yeah.
Don't go and check out Dan.
Sorry, but Dan's pretty amazing. Dan talks about freedom, and he talks about there being two types of freedom. So I'm just gonna take some of his ideas, and he says there's freedom from and there's freedom to.
Yeah.
And when you realize you've been chasing freedom from and you've never given enough consideration to freedom to, it's a bit of a scary moment. So I have freedom from work, but what do I have freedom to do?
Yeah.
Right? And actually, you can have that freedom to far earlier in life. And financial advisors can help guide this. So I'll share with you a story. I'll change some of the details, but it's based on a real story.
Yep.
A man owns a business. He's been working at it for 30 years, building it from nothing, and it's his magnum opus. It's this business he's built from nothing. Now has several employees, and he gets to the point where he's like, I think I'd like to pass that business on. Gets an offer for about $4 to $5 million to buy the business. He thinks the business is worth $6 to $7 million, right? And so he's not about to sell it for what he thinks is a 20 or 25% discount. He keeps the business. GFC happens. He absolutely destroys himself keeping that business afloat, trying to keep all his people employed who he feels responsible for their livelihood, denying himself to make sure his employees are, remain fully employed as best as he possibly can, burns himself completely out, ends up selling the business for less than $4 or $5 million afterwards, but with damage to his mental and physical health. Turns out, sits down with a financial planner. Financial planner says, Bob, for everything you want to do the rest of your life, you only need $2.5 million.
Yeah.
Right? So he had $2.5 million spare, right, on top of everything he possibly needed, right? And yet he held on to the business.
Killed himself.
And he didn't need to, right? So there is a real wisdom in knowing a number. It'd be really helpful if Bob knew, this theoretical Bob, I actually only need $2.5 million. So the number there is a really important thing to know, right? But it's not happiness, right? Is it?
Yeah.
So if a financial advisor had sat down with Bob and had discussed, Bob, what do you want to tell me? What you want freedom to do? What makes your life fulfilled?
Yeah.
Now there's ways financial advisors can do this, and I try to teach different methods. None of these methods are my own. I've a couple times in life I thought I've come up with a new idea.
Yeah.
Every time I found that someone else thought of it before me, and I've
Still
just
gonna claim it, right?
I've just given up, So here's an example of a conversation I learned and was taught to me. And you sit down with someone, you ask them this question, and it feels a little bit confronting, but I think that's done on purpose. And the question is, why is money important to you? Well, most people think the answer is really intuitive and obvious. Well,
Yeah.
money for me is about security. Well, not everyone says that. So now the advisor knows immediately security is really critical for this person. So now you ask a follow-up question. Well, Bob, not everyone says that, but you've said that. So I'm curious, why is security important to you? Oh, well, if I have security, then I'd have time. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, good. So now I know money's really about time. I say, oh, Bob, well, what's important about time for you? Bob starts to get shifty now, because now
We're digging.
Now you're digging into what.
Well,
If I had time, Bob says, then I'd be able to see my family more. Okay. Bob, I know this is sensitive, but if I understand this, I'll be able to write you a much better plan. Okay. Bob, what's important about spending time with your family? Okay, now Bob pauses. He has to make sure he's ready to tell you this, He says, I feel like I haven't given them enough of my time. I feel like I've denied them. I wasn't a very good father. I'd like to be a much better grandfather.
Yeah.
Write down. Okay. Bob, what's important about being a better father and a better grandfather? Right? You see how you see how deep this went so quickly? And Bob says, then I feel like I used my life the right way. So Bob, you say, Bob, let me see if I got this right. You actually want to live your life right. To do that, you need to be a better father and a better grandfather. But to do those things, you need time. And to have time, you need security. And that's what you want to use money for.
Yeah.
So you start at the top and you work your way down. And you pause there. And Bob looks at you going like, what the hell just happened? Right?
Yeah.
What was that conversation
How
about?
did we dive into the counseling session? Yeah.
I thought you were going to tell me which properties to own and what portfolio to buy and whether I should be in shares or bonds or whatever. And we just start talking about the fact like my deepest regret now is and you say, Bob, can we write a plan that allows you to use money for that purpose? And that becomes a lens that we evaluate all plans over to say, does this achieve that objective?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, even if it makes you money, it might not be a good plan, right? So you can use this when looking at all their goals and all their numbers, and their number's 2 million. Does 2 million help you with the father-grandfather thing, right? How?
Yeah.
Right? Or would 1.5 million, but 3 extra years help you with the father and grandfather thing? So we can, because listen, as advisors, what do we don't mind if it's 1.5 million and 61 or 2 million and 64.
Oh yeah.
The math works good either way, right? So But Bob might not be indifferent between those two numbers, but he might think he might think they're the equivalent, but maybe they're not. Emotionally, maybe they might not be. So what you want to do is rather than focus on 2 million or 1.5 million, well, which is going to be the one that aligns best to this thing that you want? How do we make plans to achieve that and then back into the number?
Yeah.
Right? Start with that in mind and back into the number. And financial advisors have a unique opportunity to embrace this. And so my job is to work with the best financial advisors and to encourage this more empathetic type of conversation.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm very happy for Massey University's work. We help sponsor it. That's how much we think it's valuable.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that's not the end, right? That is just the start of a much more important conversation.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest endorsement I could ever give for a financial advisor in terms of, and we did an episode last year on should I use DIY platforms to invest or should I use a financial advisor? And there's probably a few different points to the benefits of an advisor. But I've got clients where I don't even invest $1 for them, where I am, and I've said to the team at Lighthouse as well, is it's really about asking questions. And if you can ask questions to get the right response from a client in terms of, and it's a funny one, right? I've known you for 13 minutes, Ben.
Yeah.
Why the hell am I telling you that I think I've been a shitty father?
Right.
Yeah.
And financial advice is a little bit like counseling.
Yeah.
Like people come in thinking, oh, I've got $1 million, $100,000, whatever,
Right.
and you're going to tell me what widget to invest into. And
Right.
I do look at you can get good investments from lots of different places.
Right.
But to find like the widget, the right investment solution, and link it to the client to give it meaning,
Right.
that is really what an advisor is all about, is about creating that, well, once I've had that discussion with you with Bob, Bob might come back to you and go, Ben, I found this new business opportunity, or I've had a mate who said I should buy some gold or whatever, and it's so easy to then link it back going, yeah, you could do that, you could make some more money, or sometimes I just tell people they're silly, but going, how does that impact your ability to spend time with your kids and your grandkids? And going, well, if I have a business, probably going to be quite hard to achieve that goal.
That's it. And I kind of blow people's minds sometimes
You're blowing ours.
when I say, if you have a good financial advisor, if you have a really good one, you'll die with less money. And they paused and they went, that just seems like the exact opposite of what I think I'm going to a financial advisor for. It's like, no. A good financial advisor infuses your relationship with confidence so that you spend meaningfully along the way, not fearing to hold back unnecessarily for the rainy day never happens. You know, I'd talked to someone that I work with last week in the Hawke's Bay. This person says, my mother's 85 and saves money on the pension.
Yeah.
You get to an age where you actually can't spend it, right? And so, you know, a good financial advisor, and we'll touch on this maybe a little bit later in future episodes, but a good financial advisor, if they're really good, you will die with less money because they will encourage you to spend it on what matters sooner in life. And that is something a DIY platform will never tell you.
Yeah.
It will never tell you, right, to divest. Right? You'll think that you're doing well when the number gets higher.
Yeah.
Right? But the number getting higher, what does that have to do with who you are as a person and what you want freedom to do? Right? That's a whole different question. And that is a question that the best advisors will address with you. Granted, not everyone will do that.
Yeah.
You know, but the best ones do.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so we've got another 3 episodes lined up with Ben over the next month or so. We're going to be talking about regrets with money, goal-based planning, and a whole bunch of other topics. So if that seems of interest to you, make sure to check this out next week. Please subscribe on YouTube, give us a review on Apple or Spotify, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.